Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about my top 5 favorite coming-of-age movies that have come out in the 21st century. I didn't want to include movies from the 90s and 80s because I feel like there needs to be a separate video for those. So without further ado, let's get started. So these are in no particular order, and the first one I want to talk about is Boyhood. Richard Linklater, who directed this, is probably one of my favorite directors only because he just encompasses small town life very well, and I'm pretty partial because I grew up in Texas. I'm from Texas, and so a lot of his movies really resonate with me because I know exactly some of the areas that he's filmed in. I've walked some of the streets that these characters have walked in. So one of the main reasons why I personally love this movie and why I think it's one of my top 5 coming of age movies that have come out in the last 19 years is because the main character grew up around the time that I did. I was born in 1994, and I'm pretty sure the character was born around that time. He grew up in a time that I grew up in. You know, Game Boys were like around, and there were just different things that he had in the movie that I had also had. So it gave me a feeling of nostalgia, and I'm sure it gave quite a few other people the same feeling. It is quite a long movie. That's the only fault I can give this movie, but I feel like you need that to really just understand the growth of a child and how different moments in their lives can really impact someone. If you've got 3 hours and you haven't seen Boyhood yet, I definitely recommend it. So the next movie on my list is going to be 8th Grade. Again, this is another film that is very real, and I think that's a big theme in my top 5 coming-of-age movies. This movie feels genuine, and the actors who play in this movie are actual middle schoolers. No one feels too old for their role, especially the main character. She is, you know, just this young girl who looks like a middle schooler. She's got acne, she's awkward, she's trying to fit in, all things that are just so normal around that age, and I think we have either been that person or know someone who has been that person. So that in itself is so relatable. Although the jokes and the references that these middle schoolers make are not relatable to me, they're still relatable in the sense that these kids are just cringy, and that is really one of the biggest parts of growing up when you're in middle school, is that you're just kind of in this awkward stage in your life, and this movie just encompasses awkwardness so well. There are so many moments in this movie where you're just wanting to hide behind your blanket and not watch the screen because it feels so real, and you yourself have probably been in a similar situation. I also love the relationship that the main character has with her dad. She and him are just kind of battling it out in the movie. They don't really know how to work with each other. Her mother has died, and so it's just her and her dad, and there's just kind of a connection that they're both longing for but don't really know how to go about it. And there's a particular scene in this movie that's very touching, and like I said, just feels so real, and I think that is one of the main reasons why I love this movie so much. The next movie that's on my top 5 list is going to be Love, Simon. Now, I watched this movie in the theaters, and I had actually read the book before, so I knew exactly what I was going into, and it still was a great film for me. Obviously, if you haven't seen Love, Simon, it's about a kid named Simon, and he is gay, and he's trying to figure out his way in the world. He's trying to come out to his family in the way that he wants to, and he has a crush on somebody, and they start emailing back and forth, and things just kind of escalate from there. This movie had to be on my top 5 because of the fact that it's centered around a gay kid. You don't see that in coming of age films, and you definitely don't see them being the main character most of the time. This movie just kind of can resonate with everybody because it's just about family dynamics, friendship dynamics, what you do when somebody tells you something about them and how you accept them, things like that. And so I really have a soft spot in my heart for this movie because it's an important topic to talk about nowadays, and it's important to normalize this topic. And I think this movie does normalize it. He although has to come out in the movie. There are parts in the movie where they're questioning, why do people that are gay have to come out? Why is that something that has to be done? Why can't it just be normalized? And I think it's an important topic that's brought up in the film. So yeah, if you haven't seen this movie, I definitely recommend it, and let's move on to the next movie. The next movie on my top 5 list is going to be The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This movie came out around the time that I had graduated high school, I think a little bit beforehand, and so it has a special place in my heart because I remember going to the theater to watch it, and I just remember being very moved by it after I had seen it. The reasons I like this movie is because it's based in the 90s and I like the time period that is displayed in the movie, but it's not in your face 90s, it's pretty subtle, and if you keep watching you kind of forget that it's in the 90s. A lot of the things they're wearing and doing are things kids do today. This movie also is kind of different for a coming of age film because it definitely revolves around mental health, and there's kind of a quote-unquote mystery in the movie. You're kind of trying to figure out what the main character is dealing with, what his traumatic past was, and you get little snippets through the movie until it all kind of comes together at the end. It's interesting to watch the character develop into himself over time and to see how his backstory affects his relationships with others and how he's going to deal with it, how he's going to deal with his mental health and, you know, his issues that he's having and how he's going to overcome those things. It's also one of my favorite group of kids in a coming-of-age film. I feel like the kids are all quirky and weird and different, but it's also real and they're all likable. The ending of this movie is probably one of the most memorable scenes for me personally. Them driving in the car, listening to Hero by David Bowie. There's just something about that scene, so if you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out and read the book as well if you like to read. The last movie on my top 5 coming-of-age movies is going to be The Edge of 17. I think this movie hits a place in my heart because Nadine, the main character, is very much what I feel like I was like in high school. Kind of dramatic, a little self-absorbed, not popular, but not unpopular. It's also, I feel, just a very funny movie, and it's one of the most John Hughes-esque movies I feel that have come out in the last 10 to 15 years. It kind of encompasses that feeling of a John Hughes movie. Woody Harrelson is probably one of my favorite people in this movie, and his character is just funny, and he reminds me of some teachers that I had in high school who were just kind of in your face, like cut the bullshit kind of thing, so I really enjoy his character in this movie. And one of the main things I love about this movie is that the kids talk like kids. They talk like 16, 17-year-olds, girls and boys, and they are not super philosophical or anything. They're just trying to get through life, and I feel like anything that they said in this movie is something I would have said. They're just dramatic and stupid, and I think that is what makes this movie one of the top 5 coming-of-age films for me personally. So let me know down below in the comments what some of your favorite coming-of-age films are. I would love to know. If you haven't already, I would love if you subscribed and joined my little community that I have here, and we can talk about movies in the comments below. That's it for me today, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good rest of your day. Bye!